For the final time this year, who's Sterling and who is being driven around Paddock Hill Bend? It's the driver grades and predictions for Brands Hatch.
Hello and welcome back to the British Touring Car Podcast. Russ, you join me once again for the final driver grades this year. Entertaining weekend. Hopefully you've all listened to the review by now and also watched it. If not, go and catch up with that now. But how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. In some ways, relieved that the season's over. It has been a lot of work and a lot of time taken out. But equally gutted that we've got to wait until April of all places. I think that's 6 months until this starts again, which is slightly disappointing. But yeah, other than that, no complaints.
Yeah, it's plenty of time for drivers to change teams, cars to be modified and adapted for 2024, and possibly some regulations to be changed. But we'll get straight into the grades for this weekend then. And there has to be one and only one place that we start, and that is, of course, with a certain Mr. Ash Sutton. Took home his fourth championship this weekend with relative ease. We knew he was going to do it fairly quickly, and he set about it with taking pole position and then taking an excellent race win in race one, didn't he?
Yeah, the only interesting thing about the grade was that I had to argue with you to get it to A star, as you were happy to give it an A, despite the fact it took pole, 2 wins, and fought back to claim the manufacturer's title in race 3 following an incident with Tom Ingram. So,
Yep.
yeah, it's an A star for Sutton. For Dan Camish, it's been a season of what could have been a little bit the same here at Brands Hatch, really. It's a B, one of his stronger performances of the season, which doesn't necessarily say a lot the way it's been for him this year, but yeah, a B this time out.
Yeah, Dan Rowbottom then. He had a decent weekend. He didn't have to play too much of the team game this time round. Got a C overall for a fairly average weekend inside the top 10.
Yeah, Osborne got involved in a skirmish in race 2 that was completely avoidable. Didn't make any headway in the Jack Sears all weekend either. And I think, a frustrating day and in many ways a frustrating season. Obviously, there's the bigger picture that him and his father will be over the moon, no doubt, with the success of Allegiance Racing and Napa this year. But I think Osborne, when he looks back, once the dust is settled, will be slightly disappointed, albeit, well, not as a season as a whole, but if we're looking at Brands in its own right, be slightly disappointed that he didn't capitalise a bit more this weekend.
Yeah, very much so. Moving on to Ingram then, he takes home at A. He pretty much did everything he sort of could have done, but Sutton was just in front of him for most of the weekend. An A pretty much sums up his season. He was the best of the rest, but he was still a little way off.
Extra credit for punting Sutton off in race 3 because he's finally had enough of him. That's always good as well. Tom Chilton, C, tends to be his standard score. Didn't really get too involved, had a bit of an infringement under a safety car. Yeah, it's just the way that it's gone for Chilton this year. We will cover off all penalties later on in the pod.
Yeah, moving on to Pearson then, he also gets a C. A little bit disappointed that he didn't finish higher in the Jack Sears, I'm sure, but a decent weekend for him.
Nick Halstead, the standard D, was running towards the back of the field. I think he did manage to finish all 3 races, but no real pace to keep up with the field this weekend.
No, not at all. Colin Turkington takes home a C. An underwhelming weekend from him. I think he had a 4th, a non-finish, and just into the points for race 3. He's moving on to next season quite quickly, isn't he?
If he's back at all.
If he's back at all. Yeah.
Later in the year. Other side of the garage, Jake Hill had the best weekend of the BMW drivers, took a win in race 3, was unwell throughout the weekend as well, which might explain why he was slightly off the pace in quali and races 1 and 2. But it is 3 top 10 finishes. 3 top 10 finishes in the first 2 races. It is 3rd in the championship overall, which he secured with his good running this weekend at Brands, so it's a B for him.
Yeah. And Jelly next, probably one of his better weekends, a B for him. Was there or thereabouts running with Turkington and Hill all weekend, and then took a podium in race 3.
Shame that he decided had that incident with Doble, but his results were pretty good, to be fair.
Yeah,
Adam Morgan gets a C. strongish weekend, but never really troubling the front of the grid. So he's a C for him.
Yeah, Butcher gets a D this weekend. A disastrous race day. It was all looking so positive after qualifying, putting it on the front row, but then nothing really came together in any of the races.
No, not necessarily his fault. Problems with
No.
the car, that has been sort of the standard of him all season. But yeah, it's been a year of what could have been. Because that Toyota looks really good at times, and they never got the most out of it. And they'll be very disappointed to finish the year without a win. Sorry, I'm doing Collard. Yeah. C for Ricky Collard. Surprisingly, as it has been for the season, the best performer of the Toyotas this weekend. Had a good bit of pace, got the lights flashing on the television screen, which is what we always like to see. So yeah, it's a C for Collard for this weekend's performance.
Do you reckon he just has a little button on his steering wheel that goes party mode, and all the lights go do 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 do?
He's scratched off the flash button and put over Hit Party.
Yeah. Gamble gets an E this weekend. Slightly unforgivable, although there are rumours that it was a brake failure in race 3, and he had nowhere really to go. But it did look like he was trying to go for the move in the first place, which is why I'm a little bit sketchy on giving him anything higher than an E, because he was just nowhere.
He was nowhere in the other 2 races, and the stewards didn't give him a complete pass for race 3, which indicates to me that if there was brake failure, it wasn't total brake failure. I could be wrong, but that's how I'm kind of seeing it, because if it's normally, if there's complete mitigation, i.e. the car broke so I couldn't do anything, you won't get a penalty, generally speaking.
Yeah.
Josh Cook got a podium in race number 3. He gets a B for his weekend's antics. Not a bad season for him, not a bad race weekend for him, but nothing higher than a B.
Moffat up next then. He gets a C. Showed a little bit of pace at times, but generally just a bit average. He was certainly well out of the points compared to Collard in your prediction, which pleased you immensely.
Absolutely. Although he does get extra credit for crashing out with a massive smile on his face and going for a massive beer. That is behaviour we'd like to see. So yeah.
He was happier about that than we've seen him all year.
Yeah, absolutely. Edwards gets a C. Look, she ran really well this weekend. She was running really well in race 2 until she got contact, I think, with Gornall and Osborne, which sent her back down the field. And then in race 3, she was comfortably into the points, possibly even breaking into the top 10. Yeah. And then Gamble happened. So you can't really criticise her this weekend.
Absolutely gutting for her that she hasn't got any points this season.
But she had a good weekend, good strong finish at Brands, and hopefully that'll be a stepping board for next year if she returns.
Yeah, certainly. De Leon up first for Team Hard. He had a decent weekend. He got his best race finish of the year. I think it was a 13th overall, and kept himself out of trouble, which is always important. And dare I say it, I don't think his car had any reliability issues.
Nope. And by all accounts, he seems like a very nice lad as well, from people who have met him and talk about him on social media, etc. So yeah, good weekend for him. C for Lloyd as well, similar to De Leon in many respects. It was he got what you'd expect him to get out of the car, but nothing more, nothing less. That kind of sums up the season for Lloyd as a whole, but it also sums up this weekend perfectly. Did what you'd expect him to do, which is score points in the lower echelons of the field in that car.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that he's actually finally completed a season as well. That's always been a struggle for him in previous seasons. Gornall up next. He gets a C. He managed to get points this weekend despite not taking part in race 1 due to reliability issues. And then there was a questionable coming together with him and Osborne.
Yeah, Patterson gets a B from us. He's won Jack Sears for the weekend, which is what ultimately his aim has got to be for these races. He scored points in race number 3. Was it race number 2? He scored points this weekend anyway. Kept his nose clean, kept his powder dry, and as ever, there is a racer in there.
We might have to get that printed on a T-shirt just for you, I think.
Very much so.
Creasy gets a D this weekend. Again, reliability strikes, and also the unfortunate collection that he got from the Turkington and Pearson coming together. He was the very innocent party in that collision
He
and had nowhere to
was,
go.
although he qualified absolutely nowhere and was
Yeah,
absolutely nowhere in race one. I think he gets a fair amount of pass from the media and from fans because he's a likable chap, and I don't disagree. He's a very likable chap, but it ain't happened for him this year, and this weekend's
no.
another example of that. Yes, he's had bad luck, but equally, you look at where some of the other drivers are putting that Cupra, and yeah, you'd expect more. I'll just leave it at that for now, I think. Mikey Doble got a C for the weekend's efforts, the highest qualifier of the PMR cars into the top nine, the top 10 rather, with a ninth place finish in qualifying. Yeeted off by Stephen Jelly in race one. Obviously, we're only allowed to see one angle of it because of touring cars and cameras, but Jelly was given a penalty afterwards in a free place grid job, which suggests that Jelly was the main offender in that incident. Obviously, that sort of nuked his chances in the Jack Sears, which is a shame because it prevented the Jack Sears going all the way to the wire. But look, he fought back through the field well, did some nice bits of racing throughout the day, and was generally in the thick of it, which is quite good to see. He's certainly not afraid to get his elbows out and not put off racing in the pack. So it's a good weekend, good final weekend. What has been a good season for Dom.
Yeah, very good season for him. It'll be interesting to see how he scores in our final grades at the end of the year. Watson, his teammate, gets a B this weekend. He took home the Jack Sears Champion Trophy and had a relatively solid weekend on top of that as well. It was probably the highest performing PMR car.
Yeah, the championship win was a little bit anticlimactic at the end, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think he finished sixth in the Jack Sears in race two, and that was enough to win it because the
Yeah.
way that race one had gone. But yeah, it wasn't his best weekend, but he did the job he needed to get done.
Exactly. You got to finish in Jack Sears, and he did that.
Absolutely. Aaron Taylor Smith a quite disappointing day, all told, really, particularly given the recent form he carried coming into the race. But yeah, caught up in a few incidents. Had a puncture in race number two, I believe, and just didn't really get the rub of the green this weekend. I'm not sure he'll be too disheartened though. It's been a top season for Aaron Taylor Smith overall, but a D this weekend.
Yeah, and to finish off, Bobby was back for the final weekend, and he was bloody brilliant, really, wasn't he? Taking a podium and I think 2 top sevens behind that.
No,
No?
he didn't finish race three because he had a technical gremlin.
Oh, okay.
He would have finished comfortably in the top seven, if not higher, in race three. Yes,
But yeah, a very strong weekend from him. Qualified impeccably up in fifth, and shows how much pace you can get out of that car and how much pace he has as a driver.
Sat here now, I'm looking at that and thinking, should it be an A?
Possibly. We know that he always loves brands, first of all.
Yeah, but
I just really do hope that he's going to be back next season.
yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a letter and it means absolutely nothing. But looking at it, he's taken a podium, a top five, a top first in qualifying, and then a top seven in the second race. He's up there purely on merit, no reverse grid about it.
Yep.
In a car that has struggled, maybe it should be an A. I don't know. Maybe it should have been an A. Not that it really matters. But
let us know if you think differently in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the drivers from this weekend.
Right, before we go on to our predictions, I'm just going to give an update from Penalty Corner because there's a fair few to sort out from the weekend. So I'm just going to get those loaded up on my screen now. Okie dokie. So for race three, we'll work ourselves backwards from race three because that's where.
Can I just caveat the race three ones? I think the stewards were tired and wanted to go home.
Well, yes, because the Adam Morgan one, which was the last one to come out, came out at 20:11, so 8:10.
Yeah.
Obviously, by which point everyone was into the heavy drinking in the team celebrating the year. And yeah, I'm slightly surprised by how some of these have been given fairly light penalties.
Lenient, aren't they?
Yeah, shall we say lenient? I think you're right on that. So we'll start off with Adam Morgan, who was given a verbal warning for claiming obtaining an unfair advantage, whether inadvertently or not, by passing car number 16 as a result of contact. That would have been Aidan Moffat's spin in race three, which put him out of the race up at Druids.
Yep.
It did look like he was helped around. Possibly a racing incident, but
I think the reason that he's got a verbal for that is it's opening lap bunching.
Yeah.
And he's just nudged the back end of him and the consequence of that, obviously, Doppel went into the side of him, but he wasn't to know that when he gave that little nudge up the back from Morgan.
He wasn't, although to be fair, nobody got a reprimand or anything for the incident in race 2 with Colin. So, but obviously again we don't see all the angles that the stewards do and what. So next up is Bobby Thompson. He got a verbal warning for obtaining an unfair advantage on car number 27, which is
Dan Rowbottom. No,
correct.
sorry, Camish.
Dan Camish. Yeah. Can't remember what that was. I think there was a bit of rubbing before Sutton got fired off by Ingram. There's a little bit of rubbing down Graham Hill Bend, wasn't there? So I'm going to assume it was around about that. No penalty points awarded to him or to Morgan on those two incidents. And then George Gamble was found to have breached, causing a collision, repetition of serious mistakes, or the appearance of a lack of control over the car. No, it doesn't state which one of those it was, so I'll let you make up your own mind on that. The contact was made of 99 car, resulting in that car going out of the race. Exactly, Jade Edwards. He was only given a verbal warning and had no penalty points added. So you can look at that in one or two ways. You can either look at it as end of the season, they wanted to go home, and in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really change anything. That's not to belittle the guttingness that's happened to Edwards, but in the grand scheme of things in the championship, nothing would have changed. So maybe that played into it. The other way of looking at it is that perhaps they felt that was enough because there was mitigating factors such as what is being suggested that Gamble had a complete brake failure. But then I find that odd that you'd give him any form of warning if the car breaks, because we saw Dan Rowbottom take out Aaron Taylor-Smith in spectacular fashion at Alton Park with a similar, where the brakes failed, or vice versa. It was Rowbottom on Taylor-Smith, wasn't it? And the brakes failed, and Rowbottom didn't get any form of penalty, reprimand, anything because of the brake failure. So I don't know. I don't know how, to be honest with you, I don't know how consistent the stewarding is in touring cars. We know it's not particularly consistent at times. You look at the Hill and Ingram thing at Donington, but because we don't get the replays to then go with the penalties like we do in other sports, like F1, where they show you where things get attributed to, we get a little bit lost in trying to work it, piece it all together. So that's that.
By the way, ITV, if you're listening, we're happy to take on that role. We just need to agree a salary.
Absolutely. And then the final penalties to mention, I suppose, is that Gamble was deducted 10 points from the Drivers' Championship for having an engine changed above the number permitted. And that was 20 points were then deducted from Toyota Gazoo Racing for that. That I think is their second or third engine change of the year, which is slightly concerning for a team that are building their own engine, particularly when I don't think Napa have had to change their engine once, nor have BMW, which is interesting in its own right. And then in race 1, Stephen Jelly, as we mentioned, was given an official reprimand for an incident with Rory Butcher, and he also received 2 penalty points. Now that says Rory Butcher on here. I've got a feeling that's wrong. I've got a feeling that should be with Mike Doble.
Yes, that should be with Doble.
I'm looking at the touring car website rather than the official actuals.
Don't think the touring car website will be correct, mate. I went onto it the other day just before we did our.
Well, oddly, on the BRAC one, it's also saying car number 6. Which forced him into a barrier and out of the race.
I don't remember seeing that.
No, I don't remember seeing that because Butcher went off on his own with a puncture in race 1.
How strange.
Again, I don't know.
Not enough replays.
Well, no, because round 28 was definitely the first race, wasn't it? It's not gone back to Silverstone.
28, 29, 30.
Well, it says here, and I'm reading directly from this, that following investigation and reviewing video, I find you are guilty of contravening Motorsport UK regulation Q12214, causing a collision, repetition of serious mistakes, or the appearance of a lack of control over the car, in that contact was made of car 6, forcing him into the barrier and out of the race. But, he was given 2 penalty points of that as well, and a free place grid job. I think that's wrong. I think they mean Mikey Doble.
I think they mean Mikey Doble as well.
I think they've got that wrong.
How curious.
How curious. Anyway, and then Tom Chilton was penalised with a verbal warning for breaching safety car regulations during the first race, which I imagine means he either overtook under safety car or didn't slow down in time. So that's fairly... that sums up the penalties. Shall we have... Go on. No. Go on.
I was just going to say, shall we get on to your your glory and gloating section. Sorry, I mean the predictions.
I would never gloat. I have never gloated. I'm a very good winner, unlike yourself. I don't. I don't gloat too badly. And you've now given away. You've now given away the plot, really, haven't you? Which is not entirely clever on your part. And that's an
It would have
anticlimax.
been given away in the description anyway.
But people don't read. Right then. Okay, let's do our predictions for the last time this year. Then let's just get everything loaded up that we need to get loaded up. It's an immersive experience that we pull through, and it's got to work the technology, which is always a bit of a gamble. There we go. Sam, please tell me you can see what I can see.
I can, yes.
Lovely. Right. Okay. So my predictions for the weekend: pole for Hill didn't work. Didn't work at all. It was
Didn't help that he was feeling quite ill, was he?
He wasn't. He was a very under the weather indeed. I did get 2 points here though for Sutton win and a Hill win, which I'm very happy about indeed.
Yep.
Didn't get win points for Morgan or Jack Sears for Watson. However, that was to remind listeners and viewers the Jack Sears win for the weekend, not the overall championship.
No.
So that's 2 points gained for me. We go on to your predictions.
Yeah, I went for Ingram for pole, who was close, but there's also Sutton. Which is almost an inevitability this season. I knew Ingram needed to take a win. I thought he would go out and try and do that, and he tried his hardest, but Sutton was just too quick. And then coming into that final race, both Cook and Hill were sitting at the front. I was feeling quite happy with myself, but it was Hill that took that win, and I went for Watson as well. I thought he was going to have the pace, but he did everything sensibly this weekend, enough to take it home and not take any risks.
Absolutely. So 2-1 at this vital stage.
Yep.
Right, my then general predictions: a PMR podium, which never looked close, to be honest with you.
Didn't this weekend, which was quite surprising, to be fair.
It was, wasn't it? But wasn't to be this weekend.
Nope.
Collard to outscore Moffat, which he did with absolute ease. I'm very happy with that. WSR to outscore Bristol Street Motors. This did not include Jake Hill. This was only Jelly, Turkington, or Morgan against the 4 BSM boys.
It was quite comfortable. It's 3 BSM, but I get what you mean. But yeah, that was quite comfortable. The BMWs were strong here this weekend, and all scored relatively good points.
And then I predicted Sutton's final points total to be 448, and it was, of course, 446. So 2 points off, which
so close.
So close. So what if I was close?
Over the line.
I was close, but you at one point was even closer, wasn't you?
It was, yeah. I was absolutely willing, in a good way, shall we say, for him not to finish that final race when he had a hip and shoulder moment with Ingram. I thought, yes, he's coming to the pits. I'm going to be on 443 exactly. I'll take the 3 points, which would have given me the win, and just let down. That safety car really didn't help me, but there we go.
Well, just take us through your 4 then.
Ingram did competently outscore all of his teammates combined. Jelly had an excellent weekend, and Aaron Taylor-Smith had an especially poor weekend, so I did fairly well on that one. And I was, until race 3, quietly confident about Gornall outperforming De Leon and Crease, as he got points in race 2, but then De Leon kept out of trouble, stayed with Patterson, stayed with Lloyd, and got up into 13th overall. Now, I will finish off with how my predictions went in just a minute, but we have had a few technical gremlins on Russell's End this week, which means you've just got me to finish the podcast. So, yeah, let's get back into these predictions. Coming down onto that final lap then, Sutton was sitting just behind Mikey Doble, and I thought he was just going to do enough right up until the end of the race to keep Sutton behind him, which means that I would have got the extra point for the championship points for Sutton at the end of the season. However, coming across the line, and it must have been probably less than 0.2 of a second maybe, Sutton managed to sneak ahead of him and take those points up to 446 for the end of the season, meaning that he was 2 points closer to Russell than he was to me. So, unfortunately, Russell took home the points on that one, which meant the overall scores at the end of the season came to me on 33 points and Russell on 34.5. And I can tell you now, he was very smug when that happened. I was head in my hands as Sutton came across the line, which I haven't said many times this season because he's had some outstanding drives. But all credit to him. He's done well to fight me off this season, and he is certainly basking in the glory of that victory. So moving on to next season, we'd love to have your thoughts and feelings on each weekend as we go into it. So I think we're going to look to try and introduce a viewer or listener league. We'll have 3 general predictions from you. We're going to pit them against our 3 general predictions between each of us in a little mini league across the season. So please do make sure that when just before the preview comes out, we'll release a little bit on social media. We want your comments on what you think is going to happen for the weekend. We're going to choose what we think are the 3 best ones or even the most likely ones, and pit them against our 3 each weekend and see how you do against us. Maybe your knowledge is better. Maybe you're going to have better luck than us. It will be interesting to have that little bit of competition between us and you, the viewers. But yeah, thank you very much for listening this season. We very much appreciate all the comments, the likes, and if you're listening or watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, get the bell on, just so you know when we get a podcast released. And we'll be looking forward to seeing you. We'll have a season review coming up, as well as keeping abreast of all the major news stories in the off season. But until then, goodbye.